Hi, Denise Mactow here with another installment in the Visions of Mercy channel, another installment about the Tiffany Jenks murder. That murder happened October 8th, 2013. I believe that it shares a great deal. It's connected in the ways that it happened with several other murders. And I've spoken about that in some other videos. The official story of what happened to Tiffany Jenks is truly horrific. Her surviving lover, John S. Captain, has been on some major radio stations speaking about his belief that this was an MK Ultra situation. And he is, I think, being encouraged in that direction. But at the simple, everyday level of thrill-killing conspiracies, it's horrific enough. Michelle Worden Brosley was a woman who was driving from Washington to Seattle to meet a man, Joshua Robinette, so that the two of them could get married. Joshua Robinette was bringing a friend with him, Danielle Brunel. Now somehow, there was also a plan, besides they were going to get married. There were two guns being married, Bonnie and Clyde. Where do I get that? The groom is bringing a gun, or Brunel was bringing a gun. The way the best man at a wedding carries the ring, the bride was bringing a gun. This was a satanic ceremony. Tiffany Jenks was the sacrifice. And you don't need MK Ultra, Monarch Slave, and all that other stuff to see the 666 crap of what really happened. It's possible. It's possible that they might simply have been willing to shoot the first lone female they could pick up at closing time in a bar. That's what the prosecution claims happened to Tiffany Jenks. She was that lone female. However, something incredibly synchronistic, as C.J. Young, the famous psychologist of the 20th century, would say, something synchronistic happened. Something coincidental happened. Something that shows there's a higher power wanting the truth to be told here. What happened was, for a long time prior to her death, Tiffany Jenks feared that she was going to be killed. And it may simply have been the self-destructive worries of an alcoholic. She was a young woman of high regard, intellectually extremely gifted, who had fallen from a very important position in the Bonneville Power Company. She had fallen to the street through her problems with alcohol. And in the course of that, she developed a fear that some people were going to kill her. This has gone into in other videos, but in a nutshell, she was running through her friends. Her family had become separated from her. She was on her own. One of the people who knew her before she lost her job, before her career ended, was trying to help her get on her feet, was the writer named Richard Lovett. I have erroneously referred to him as a lawyer in one of my last videos because he did speak in an interview with Ed Opperman on the Opperman Report that he had been at one point a law professor, but that was to make a point about his knowledge. His main activity and in tremendous career as a science fiction writer with many, many awards, as well as a nonfiction writer with many awards to his credit. The kind of person who would be friends with someone like Tiffany Jenks because their minds were both up there. And he, a man in his 60s, gave her the compassionate gesture of a room she could use while she went to therapy and alcohol treatment. But as luck would have it, she fell off the wagon. She went over to a less respectable part of town where she met John Captain. Now, John Captain was not a bad guy. He's a regular guy, living a very different life from Tiffany's intellectual friends or from what Tiffany had lived before she had slid down that far. But he's an honest businessman. Okay, he ran a hot tub spa in a strip mall. And he didn't know Tiffany's life very well. But she was showing up in his life and needing a place. She didn't want to stay with Richard Lovett because she wasn't going by the treatment rules. She was falling off the wagon, and Richard Lovett was, you know, his gesture had strings attached. You got to sober up. So she began to backslide. John Captain didn't know her friends. He didn't know these other people that are now showing up claiming to have been her friends. And he didn't really know much about her. He loved her for about a year. He knew she was struggling with alcohol. He knew enough about her, but I mean, he wasn't like a part of her life for all her life. And he gave up trying to help her because he found there's even a recording of what happened. They fought, they argued. He found bottles that she had hidden, and he told her she couldn't stay, so she left. And it was shortly after that the murder happened. So this man, picture yourself in his shoes. You're a regular guy, and this brilliant woman who's fallen on hard times has briefly been in your life, and suddenly you're getting the news that she's just been found this morning with a bullet in her head. One of the things that happened, and this is one of the things it has in common with another murder case. So, well, it became a manslaughter, but it was a killing, unconnected in any way to this, except for this one common thing. He gets a hold of a cell phone that she had borrowed from him. He gets hold of all the material that was on it, and thinking he was going to come across some helpful hints, you know, people she was talking to, some text messages. He starts to review the material in the cell phone, only to discover that for the months that she has feared somebody was going to kill her, she had been making recordings. She had been making audio recordings. It's a large number, a huge number. You can go to his channel and spend a month going through everything that he has taken and put there. She was deliberately leaving a breadcrumb trail because in her state of mind, she didn't know what else to do. And of course, you hear drunks say self-destructive things and paranoid things all the time, and you don't necessarily believe them. So, Captain goes through. You can see what happened when you go to his channel. But the story of what really happened at the murder is this. This is my take on what I have seen. The three people who showed up to kill Tiffany Jenks came from two different directions. The woman, Michelle Warden Brosley, was a mortuary assistant with a morbid fascination with death, an unnatural, to quote the prosecutor, an unnatural fascination with death. Link to the story is in the description. She takes a gun and drives down to Oregon to meet her sweetheart, Joshua Robinette, who was going there to meet her, and the two of them were to get married. Now, the story that is given in the link below in the news account that came from the trial was as if this was an impulsive thing. Robinette suddenly says he's bringing this guy Brunel with him because Brunel has a gun he wants to sell. So there's something to do with having to go all that distance to sell a gun. And the man carries it. It's not Robinette carrying the gun, it's his wingman. It sort of makes you think of the best man at a wedding carrying a ring. Hold that thought. So they drive to Portland. Number of things happen. And they meet Tiffany Jenks, who is alone at a bar, a strip club. There was a bar and a strip club combined. And she had apparently gone to the bar and then somehow or other ended up at the strip club alone. And it's close to closing time. And these three, Brunel, Warden Brosley, and Robinette, come in to the establishment and they walk out with her. Then the four of them, Tiffany Jenks, Joshua Robinette, Daniel Brunel, Michelle Warden Brosley, all get in the car and drive away. And it all happens very quickly. They drive to Blue Lake Park. They get out. At the same time as Warden Brosley and Robinette are deciding to make love in the bushes at Blue Lake Park, at the same time, Brunel is shooting Jenks in the head. Now, I commented about a marriage of the guns. The guns actually had names. According to the prosecutor, there was this really weird element that Warden Brosley referred to the guns as Bonnie and Clyde. Now, you got to think about this. These two people are coming from two different directions to get married. They'd apparently known each other for a long time and decided to finally tie the knot. And they each bring a gun. Normally, one each brings a ring, or the groom would bring a ring. But they each bring a gun that has a name. Now, if you're just going to sell a gun, do you name it? And is the name similar to the names of a gun somebody else has? And if you read the story, supposedly these people didn't know each other. Brunel was just somebody that suddenly needed a ride to Portland. The Tiffany Jenks murder was a satanic wedding sacrifice. That's what it was. Now, you can go into the studies of monarch slaves and MK Ultra and everything else, and I do believe the government is promoting those conspiracies, because the real conspiracy is the establishment of a sacrificial religion that is never going to result in full prosecution of a murder. Brunel is in jail for a token amount for having pulled the trigger. Warden Brosley, the death-glorifying mortuary worker, is out. She and her new husband got the warning that, they were charged with hindering prosecution. They weren't even charged with conspiracy. And they got released on some kind of slap on the wrist probationary. Those people are far more dangerous than someone who would pull a gun in a bar fight. But that's what they were treated like. People in self-defense get more time, more punishment from the law than that. If you defend yourself against a robber coming into your house, you're going to get more time than that. Denise Matteau, over and out.